Welcome to Post Games, a podcast about how and why we love video games. I am your host, Chris Plant, and I am so happy to have you here as we discuss the most powerful force in the world. Not nihilism, not hatred. I am talking about love. And wait. Don't turn off the episode, please. This won't be sappy, I promise. Let's all start with a deep breath, a sincere question, and an honest answer. Have you ever had a crush on a fictional character? I believe the answer is universally yes, that having the hots for a character in a cartoon, a book, or a video game is something that we've all experienced at least once, but rarely said aloud. Names like Jessica Rabbit and Lola Bunny, Flynn Rider, and Prince Zuko might send a tingle up the back of your neck, and that, my friends, is okay. The flutter of the heart and the raising of the pulse might end with the credits roll, or it might continue, the character appearing in people's social media avatars, or their bumper stickers, or throughout their favorite fan fiction. And on a dark and lonely night, they might even have switched on incognito mode and searched for a certain character's name plus Rule 34, their computer screen filling with Yogi Bear performing the most taboo of acts on a delighted Snagglepuss. And that, too, is okay, even if it's less common. For most people, these crushes, from the sweet to the not safe for work, go no further than attraction, because, after all, fictional characters, by definition, are fiction. But for a small group of people who identify as fictophiles, the feelings flourish into love. Video games have been associated with fictophilia before it even really had a name, but especially since 2018, when a man symbolically married Hatsune Miku, a fictional pop star who appears in gobs of video games where players not only help her sing hit songs, but select her clothes, style her looks, and decorate her diva room, a sort of adorable green room space where you can hang out with this teal-haired icon. And away from video games, they have the freedom to create songs for the character to sing using specialized Vocaloid software, which is to say, fans can make Hatsune Miku into whatever they'd like. We have come a long way since Miku. Since 2018, the biggest and wealthiest tech companies have sunk billions into artificial intelligence to create machines that don't just sing and dance and wear your favorite clothes, but perform menial tasks and shower the user in flirtatious praise, chopped often from copyright-protected text and then collaged by predictive algorithm. Many tech CEOs have been open about their desire to hook customers with chatbot tools designed to mimic human behavior. Cautious brands have paid celebrities millions of dollars to appear in Super Bowl ads where they talk to their smart home speaker like it's their best friend, while Elon Musk has proudly loaded his AI with an army of sex bots, a glorified mechanical parrot that will say all of your favorite naughty words. Which is why I felt so strongly about doing this episode. I believe that in the coming years, we will need to be collectively prepared to have some tough, sensitive, and often contradictory conversations about what it means to fall in love with fictional characters. So, this week on Post Games, I am talking with one of the leading researchers of fictophilia and fictosexuality, Tanja Välisalo. I spoke with my guest because fictosexuality is broadly misunderstood and varies between people, regions, and experiences. So I wanted to chat with someone who has spent time reading, analyzing, and contextualizing the words and feelings of people from across the community. That said, I want you to have the chance to hear directly from people who identify as fictophilic or fictosexual too. So I've included a variety of links in the show notes, ranging from interviews with the man who symbolically married Hatsune Miku to lesser covered everyday experiences of people in places like the Fictosexual subreddit, where experiences range from fictosexuality to semi-fictosexuality, to having characters that provide a sense of stability and comfort. I do ask, though, that if you choose to visit these sites, especially community spaces like Reddit, that you engage with them sincerely. We don't want to be tourists in these communities. We want to learn about the wide breadth of human experience and see where it overlaps with our own, especially if you listen to this episode and hear yourself in it, which is my long-winded way of saying I want to handle this topic with as much respect as possible because we all deserve as much. So for this week, Act 1, What is Fictophilia? Act 2, Fandoms, Parasocial Relationships, and Big Tech. A special Patreon bonus, I have hit a big milestone. This is a rare peek behind the curtain. I know it's a little inside baseball, but I think you will be excited to hear about where the show is going. And I can't wait to tell you. And Act 3, as always, the news of the week. Plus, we have a new song from the upcoming game, Tears of Metal. All of that and more right after this break. This episode is brought to you in part by Incogni. As a video game journalist who has been doxxed, I am constantly preaching the message of personal data hygiene. Every person, not just journalists, should be aware of just how much of their personal information, I'm talking phone numbers, addresses, health information, and more, is available on the internet. And those private details, they are being sold without your consent by data brokers. The problem, it is so big and so widespread, you could lose entire days finding who has your info, requesting that they remove it, and keeping these bad actors accountable. That is why I recommend Incogni. The moment you subscribe and authorize removal, Incogni begins searching data brokers, online directories, people databases, and commercial databases. And you get to watch it happen in real time on your dashboard. When I signed up, over 200 removal requests were sent instantly. Within 30 minutes, 60 requests had been completed. And that's not just a number. I can see the list of data brokers that have been contacted and begun the data removal process. Because trust is good. But when it comes to safety, my friends, want to see the results. But Incogni's work doesn't end there. It keeps checking back in with data brokers because with new hacks of personal data, your info can begin to crop up in some of those old, gnarly places. After going independent as a journalist, I began searching for the right data personal removal service for me. Incogni is exactly what I was looking for and has already brought me tremendous peace of mind. To get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan, go to incogni.com/postgames. Postgames, all one word right there. Or click the link in the episode description box, or click the link in the show notes in the newsletter at post.games. Today's episode is brought to you in part by Quince. A thoughtfully built wardrobe comes down to pieces that mix well and last. That is where Quince shines. Premium fabrics, considered design, and everyday essentials that feel effortless to wear and dependable, even as the seasons change. And the seasons, my friends, they just keep changing. Quince has the everyday essentials that I love with quality that lasts. Lightweight cashmere sweaters, short sleeve Mongolian cashmere polos, linen bottoms and shorts, tees in 100% Pima cotton, and European jersey linen. These are the versatile pieces that make a wardrobe actually work season to season. Quince works directly with top factories and cuts out the middlemen. You're not paying for brand markup or fancy retail stores, just quality clothing, rated between 4.5 and 5 stars by thousands of people wearing it every day, and they only partner with factories that meet rigorous standards for craftsmanship and ethical production. I am living in a bit of a monochrome phase, really enjoying the black and whites right now. I have this killer black sweater that I am loving from Quince. It's so cozy, and fancy white tee is basically the only way to put it, that I feel confident when I'm wearing. Look, I'm a 40-year-old man. Anything that makes me feel confident when I go out, that is a huge improvement. So stop overcomplicating your wardrobe. You don't need a closet full of options. You need a few pieces that actually work. Right now, go to quince.com/hostgames, all one word, for free shipping and 365-day returns. That's a full year to build your wardrobe and love it, and you will. Now available in Canada too. Don't keep settling for clothes that don't last. Go to quince.com/postgames, all one word, for free shipping and 365-day returns. quince.com/postgames. Act 1. What is Fictophilia? Today's guest is Dr. Tanja Välisalo, a teacher, researcher, and project coordinator at the Department of Music, Art, and Culture Studies at the University of Jyväskylä in Finland. Her research focuses on game and fandom studies. Beyond today's topic, her work ranges from research on esports and streaming to sexual violence in popular media like Game of Thrones. In the first half, she'll introduce us to the history and communities of Fictophilia and Fictosexuality. And in the second half, we'll talk about Fictophilia in relation to fandoms, parasocial relationships, and the mega companies that seek to exploit relationships with fictional characters in order to convert massive audiences into AI true believers. The study states that the, quote, present intention is not to propose Fictophilia as a problem or a disorder. What was the intention of the study?
To understand what this phenomenon is, how people themselves understand it, what kind of experiences and emotions are related to it, and to kind of understand how they position themselves as parts of larger communities or in relation to different identities. So that was kind of the focus, because there was not really no existing research on this particular phenomenon, or there was very little of it, or it was older. So we wanted to get into the heart of what is happening right now to understand.
Speaking of understanding, I'm sure there are plenty of people listening who have felt an attraction to a cartoon character before. How is Fictophilia different from people watching a film like, let's say, Roger Rabbit and being attracted to Jessica Rabbit or Roger Rabbit? How is Fictophilia different than those feelings?
The main difference is that people who identify as fictoromantic, it's a huge part of their identity, and they often are either only attracted to fictional characters, or at least it is a major part of their romantic or sexual identity. So I think that's the biggest difference, because for all of us, it's very normal and natural to feel attraction to a fictional character, because fictional characters are built like that. We are kind of responding to them as if they were real people. That's kind of the essence of a fictional character. But then when it comes to this fictophilic experience, fictional characters are forming kind of the focus of this person's romantic and sexual feelings.
How new is this as a feeling? Or I guess another way to put it is, what are the earliest examples you could find of fictophilic feelings?
Oh gosh, I'm sure you could find really old examples. Of course, we don't have access to the earliest, or it's difficult to say what would be like the earliest case, but I would expect that it's as old as mass media, at least.
Yeah.
Because mass media is something that has allowed us to kind of connect with these different fictional characters, representations of fictional characters in many different media forms. Of course, there are certainly, I'm sure we can find examples from even before, but mass media has allowed us to have a variety of fictional characters we can encounter every day. So it's easy to find an ideal person from that variety.
I will avoid stepping on the third rail here of modern religion. So I'll just say, let's say Greek gods. But I couldn't help but find a similarity here between the relationship with people and gods. And again, for using Greek gods for a safety net, is there a difference between that kind of intense, passionate relationship and something like this?
Well, I'm not an expert in religious experiences. I'm sure there can be a kind of a religious connection with a deity that it comes close to fictophilia. I have originally studied history and my background is in history research. So I, of course, have to say that it's always kind of dangerous to draw too direct parallels between earlier phenomena and current phenomena, because we can never completely get into the kind of the cultural context and mindset that people used to have in ancient days. So I would actually think of fictophilia more like a phenomenon that can have similar previous examples in the past, but still I would think that fictophilia is strongly a modern phenomenon when we define it as fictophilia per se, because it's the word that the people use who have found each other through internet. I think that's one of the major things that allows this kind of phenomenon to arise, is that there have probably been people for ages who have had these kinds of private experiences of not being able to find anyone in this plane of existence in real life who would be as interesting or as attractive as a particular fictional character. But they were very lone experiences, certainly, because these people were not just able to connect with each other. Now with the online groups, different kinds of online communities, forums, it's possible to find others who have these fairly rare experiences, at least much of the population of the world, then it's easier to form communities. So if we look at, for example, English-speaking forums and online websites, you can have, as we found in our research, that there are loads of these forums and discussions where people discuss these experiences. So they have been able to find each other and find this peer support and find through others, through discussing with others, find an understanding of what is this that I'm feeling and experiencing, and to give a name to that experience. I think you have to have the peer support, you have to have the community to be able to find a name.
Let's dig into the communities, because there is this tension. So your study notes that one of the most common topics in these online forums is stigma and shame. And yet they are choosing to speak about it. So they're breaking past some layer of that stigma and shame. What gets them over that hump?
I think certainly the main kind of takeaway from this, that this is clearly so important to them. These are not emotions that come one week and are gone the next, but they are clearly something that has stayed with them for a while. It doesn't mean that the situation isn't different a year or 2 years or 5 years later, but in a point where they come and discuss these emotions in an online forum, in these online settings, they have already been feeling this way for quite a while. So it clearly takes precedence in their life. And of course, we presume that lots of these people are young people. We don't know their ages exactly, but we expect and can construe from some of their writings that many of them are quite young. So, of course, it is possible that these experiences are something that are part of their kind of development, for example. So it doesn't mean that they necessarily have had these emotions for decades, even though these kinds of cases exist as well. But in general, it's clearly something that they are pondering. They are trying to understand themselves. Why are these emotions with me? Why am I different than my friends or family members or other people around me? Because others seem to be able to form relationships with other people and I don't. So it's clearly for them, it's something that it's kind of a riddle. They want to understand themselves. And I think that's why they also start talking about it. Even though there's hesitation, there can be fear. How will others feel about me? And in this study, we actually noticed when people write about the stigma, for some, it's stopping them from sharing with their friends or families. They experience themselves as fictophilic or fictoromantic or fictosexual. So many of them don't share it anywhere else except on these online forums.
You have a great term for the feelings that are going through the minds of someone who is experiencing fictophilic emotions, and it's the fictophilic paradox. Can you explain what that is?
So fictophilia can be problematic for the people experiencing it because at the same time, they have found this love or attraction to this wonderful person, but this person is a fictional character. It's not someone they can actually interact with in their daily lives. And we know that love and attraction are usually considered as positive feelings, even though they can also bring, of course, different kinds of sorrows and pain with them. But at the same time, these people experiencing fictophilia, they are very much aware that this is not a real person, so they can never truly be with them. So happiness and attraction and love may be on the other hand, but then again, there's always the distance. There's always the distance with the fictional love. They can never really be together. They can never really truly interact. And that brings the pain or the sorrow in these. I think it's something that's very familiar to many of us. We look at an amazing film or TV series that deeply affects us, or play a game where we interact with characters who are really important to us. But when the story ends, or when the game is over, or you are done with the book, it doesn't continue. And the sadness you feel when you have to kind of leave it. Of course, you can go back and rewatch or replay or reread, but still there's an ending.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you experienced that when you have played a really great game or a really wonderful movie, or you're sad that it ends?
Yeah, it's the sadness that it ends. Oddly, I feel like a lot of modern media is keen to this, so it doesn't end. It wants to create the sense that it's just a part of our world, right? Star Wars as much as part of our world as anything else. It will never end. You can go visit it, Disneyland. It's trying to create a sense of this fictional thing being real. And we'll get into this more in the second half of the way that people close that distance. Before we get to that, though, I did want to pick at other ways this feels similar to, I guess I would say, typical experiences. In the study, you talk about fictophilic supernormal stimuli, which sounds like a fancy term, but is actually quite easy to explain. It is where the superior capacities and features associated with fictional characters evoke this feeling, especially when compared to, quote, real people. You have fictional characters who can constantly succeed. They can do all sorts of things that are impossible in the real world. And they also have physical appearances that defy physics, I would say. All of that said, how is this different from, say, photoshopped images of models that are on our magazines, or the tweaking that is done with light, even in a film? Are we more accustomed to these supernormal stimuli than we might assume?
I think we certainly are. And I think you're hitting a really interesting point there, because I find that Fictophilia has a lot in common with the so-called parasocial relationships we might have with different celebrities. So for the longest time, in fan studies, audience studies, psychology, there's been research on how people relate to celebrities, movie stars, TV hosts, and so forth. And there are lots of similarities to these really intense fan relationships with these real people, these performers, in comparison to the emotions and connections people experiencing Fictophilia have with these fictional characters. So I think there's a lot of similarities, but the biggest difference currently in the age of social media is that you have the possibility, it might be very small, but you have the potential of actually reaching the celebrity you are admiring. You might be even able to meet them, but despite where you live, where you are in the world, you might be able to get a response from that celebrity through a social media account. That's the difference. So I think that's why certainly how celebrities, they have the kind of public images that are of course polished, and you mentioned like photoshopping and these kinds of enhancements to the physical representations as well. But I still think that they are very similar, but there is the difference, in a sense, a possibility of actually being together or touching the person you are in love with. Of course, nowadays on Instagram, you don't necessarily know if it's a real person as real.
We're absolutely going to be getting back into that in just a moment. But before that, just on the supernormal stimuli, in my head, when I think about this as someone who has not experienced this by definition, I assume it is almost entirely physical attraction, which I guess makes me a cliche of a man in some ways. But what I enjoyed in this study, and it makes so much sense, is supernormal stimuli can be all sorts of things. And I believe, even point to like what a 40-year-old man with kids would actually find to be supernormal stimuli, and it's not just appearance. Can you explain what the other versions of that are?
I think it's just any personality traits or activities or practices connected to that character that you consider that are ideal. So it could be that the fictional character could appear as the ideal mate who, well, these are cliches, but brings breakfast to bed, or is always in a good mood, or, any of these traits that real people just are not. We all have bad days, and none of us are perfect. So with a fictional character, you can always at least imagine that they are the perfect partner, that they are the answer to all of your wishes, dreams, expectations.
Before we wrap this section, I do want to go back to that parasocial and celebrity comparison, because that, for the person experiencing it, might sound like a negative, that you can't close that distance. But you also describe that as, in some ways, a positive, because the fictional characters not being real also makes them, quote, in your words, safe. What does safe mean in this scenario?
In some games, fictional characters can respond to you, can reciprocate your feelings, for example, in some ways. So technically that is possible, but still you are always aware that it is the way they are coded to do. It's the algorithm really working there. So in general, fictional characters are safe because you don't get anything unexpected. You know what they are. You know what's coming. You are not in any way surprised necessarily. You can always just close the window or TV or the book or the game, and you can kind of turn it off. So in many ways, you have the control. You are in control of the fictional characters, their representations. So there's none of the danger that comes with human relationships where you don't necessarily have the full control. You never do. You don't know what the other person is going to say or do. And of course, the very real possibility that the real person might leave you. The fictional character never does.
Well, I think that's a nice, sour, sweet place to take a quick break, and then we'll come right back. This episode is brought to you in part by Factor. You got the cold days going right now. You've got big things to accomplish this year. You have no time to cook. Well, don't worry. Factor makes eating healthy easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. So you can eat that tasty food, you can feel good, and you don't have to plan or cook or any of that stuff. I personally recommend right now the Parmesan and sun-dried tomato chicken penne. It is delightful. You got the green beans, you got the pearl onions. It's so good because they have quality functional ingredients, including lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole food ingredients, and healthy fats. You got none of the refined sugars or artificial sweeteners or refined seed oils, the stuff that you don't want. You just feel good eating Factor. And you have so many options, 100 rotating weekly meals. If you prefer high protein or you want something more calorie smart, maybe like Mediterranean diet or GLP-1 support would help, or you just want some ready-to-eat salads, they've got it all. Always fresh, never frozen, ready in about 2 minutes. So again, no prep, no stress, a delight. I have been eating Factor meals for a long time now. And, you know, just not having to be stressed, that could be a lot. The fact that these are delicious meals, that's the cherry on top, my friends. That's the good stuff. So head to factormeals.com/postgames50 and use code postgames50 to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. Act 2. Fandoms, parasocial relationships, and big tech. So here we're going to talk about both how Fictophilia ties into games and really the experience of it. I want to start with the gaming. This is a gaming podcast. What characters from gaming have you seen inspire fictophilic feelings?
For Fictophilia, there is no specific one character that we have found that would arouse these emotions. So rather, I would say it's the Japanese role-playing games that might be a genre that comes up often. But I think the diversity of characters that fictosexual, fictoromantic, fictophilic people are attracted to, I think it just goes to show that these fictophilic emotions are more about the person experiencing them rather than the character, the fictional character that awakens them. So it's more about coming across a certain character in a right time and right place who somehow responds or answers to the needs the person has at that moment.
Perhaps the most famous example of fictosexuality is Akihiko Kondo, a middle-aged Japanese man who famously, symbolically, emphasis on symbolic here because it's often misreported, married Hatsune Miku, a character that is a Vocaloid, basically a pop star. And Akihiko Kondo has since become something of an outspoken advocate for cultural acceptance of fictosexuality. Why do you think this particular person's fictosexual relationship has attracted so much public and media attention for nearly a decade?
I think that's really just down to the novelty of the phenomenon for many people. It's, as we discussed, many people experience the stigma related to fictophilia, and it makes them scared of telling about their experiences, even to their friends or families. So I think this case is different because this person has come out publicly to discuss fictophilia. So I think it's just because it's so new for so many people, reading the news stories, finding out about this. Now, I must say I haven't really followed closely this Kondo's case. I'm not familiar with them. I would also be hesitant in a way to give, analysis or judgments on, someone I don't really know. I think what research can do is we can give a deeper understanding on a phenomenon based on the consistent stories of multiple different people.
We talked in the first half about this distance that people feel during this kind of paradox. In what ways did you see people trying to close that gap, to carry the character with them in some way, to recreate the character that they love in the real world?
Well, the fictophilic paradox, it's something that many of the people we studied, the experiences we studied, they depicted how the paradox became real for them or felt especially cruel or hard on those moments when they were disengaging from media. So those moments when the people were actually engaged with the character somehow, watching a TV series episode or playing the game, those were the moments when they felt really close to the character. But then the shift from doing that to something else is one of those places where people often really felt the distance and where it felt really painful. But on the other hand, also everyday life situations. So situations where other people go out with their partners, talk about their partners, are able to do everyday things with their partners. These experiences of fictophilia also described these moments as potentially painful, places where these people were faced with the different realities they and their friends or family members had, because they were able to go grocery shopping with their partner, and the person who felt they were attracted to or even in a relationship with a fictional character, they couldn't really do that. That difference also from others made the distance feel further and more real.
There was another term that you used in some ways as a counter to the parasocial relationships that we were talking about in the past, and that is love objects, which is, I think, a bit more positive sounding than parasocial relationships and serves a different purpose. Can you describe how these two perspectives are different, the parasocial perspective versus the love object perspective?
I'm not actually quite sure that there is such a huge difference, because there are also some researchers feel that fictophilia is kind of just one expression of parasocial relationships. Now I'm being a really academic guest for you and saying that I think these definitions, like finding out if these are different or similar, would need a bit more research on that level before I would dare to really respond to that.
I'll pivot to a game-related thing, which is We briefly touched on that games are unique in these situations and that games can at least create the illusion of interactivity. And I am very curious about how the way that technology is evolving is going to impact these sorts of experiences. I think it was something like VTubers, which came from a mix of game development tools and Vocaloids like Hatsune Miku. They are now popular enough to fill conventions in baseball stadiums. How do you see Fictophilia and expressions of it evolving as fictional characters become quite responsive in real-time settings?
That's a really interesting question. As a researcher, I'm really excited to see where the future will take us on this, because certainly with different AI solutions becoming more and more prevalent and cheaper and easier to access, I think there is true potential. When we did our study, this kind of avalanche of large language models and technology based on them had not yet happened. It was maybe emerging slowly. So I think doing this research now or maybe 5 years from now might bring new, really interesting possibilities. I find it completely possible that people experiencing fictoromantic or fictosexual emotions, or just fans in general, would more and more find these new technological solutions to use to interact with the characters that they love and admire. So I think it's not something that's necessarily only about Fictophilia. It's something that might change ways that fandom works, in a sense, that ways that fan activities take place.
Yeah, I feel like we're just beginning to see that with the generative AI chatbots, especially on platforms like X, which are promoting these sorts of experiences. It is a feature of the platform.
Sorry, I was just going to add that technically it's now very possible for a person with fairly medium technical skills to be able to create a chatbot based on the fictional character that they really, really love, if they have enough data to give. So certainly it's possible already.
Beyond this rigid scope of Fictophilia, we do have the broader culture of sexualized or romanticized characters across entertainment, the fandom of them. How have corporations fed this culture or subculture of fans having at some level romantic or lustful feelings, whether it is fictophilic or something a little more common for fictional characters? How are people or companies converting that into money?
That is actually really interesting, because often it seems that large media companies, media producers, they are using or finding the techniques from fandom. So we have seen, for example, with this launch of transmedia production in the last 10, 15 years, with these large transmedia products where the same fictional universe is dispersed to many different products and mediums. How many of these practices are directly coming from fandom? The things that fans have been doing for decades and ages, these strategies that they have created. Now companies are using those strategies to create revenue. They are directly using the kinds of tools of narrative expansion, for example. So I think probably in the future we will again see commercial entities taking notes on what fans are doing.
Yeah.
And then capitalizing on that. Because we have seen that happen so many times.
A last thing, Fran, you study fandoms as a larger tent, not just this. What did your research into Fictophilia help you better understand about fandom in general and the fan experience?
I think the study of Fictophilia really showed the diversity of fan experiences. And also, what I found very interesting was the connection or the engagement with the title of fan, so the identity of fan. Many of these people described that they do not find a place for themselves in fandom, that they do not identify as fans. So Fictophilia was something different from fandom. It's really interesting that fandom has become, in the last decades, such a prevalent phenomenon that we see more and more of these different identities being defined through not being a fan. And I think that actually tells us something about how fandom here has really become mainstream.
The need to be more, it sounds like, in some way. Fandom used to meant an intense, almost fanatical relationship, and you're right. Now everyone is a fan of something.
Fans used to be the ones bearing the stigma. So fandom was something that was considered unhealthy, childish, not fitting for adults, certainly, for example. And we have seen the change in that in the last decades. Now, I think we can just see these new cultures, new identities emerging, for whom fandom is now the mainstream. Fan cultures are in many places now the mainstream. I think this is also something that is partially perhaps a generational question. I think that myself, for example, I have identified as a fan of different things from very early, from my teenage years. So I think these kinds of phenomena just show that these identities are also tied to certain times, places, and generations.
That is a perfect place to end it. Thank you so much. Where should people look if they want to follow your work or they want to know more about what you do?
Oh, I'm kind of boring in a sense that I don't I don't have a cool website at the moment, and I'm actually spending a lot of time off social media nowadays. But I think Blue Sky is probably the place I can be found.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Patreon bonus, a big update on post games. Here is where we split for Patreon subscribers, something a little bit different. I try not to get too inside baseball. The show isn't about me, but post games hit a big subscriber milestone this week, so I would like to share what that means for the future of the publication, how much further I still need to go before I will feel stable-ish, and also what is coming in the editorial calendar. I would like to, whet your appetite a little for some truly incredible conversations with people I never thought I would have the chance to speak with. For everybody else, though, no worries. We still have the news of the week and a new song from the upcoming game Tears of Metal. As the title suggests, it is a heavy metal anthem. So, let's split. Act 3, the news of the week. Okay, so for this episode's news, I wanted to catch y'all up on the growing concern about child safety on Roblox. My friend and former colleague, Nicole Carpenter, recently spoke with Roblox's head of parental advocacy about the company's efforts around child safety and its stance on the 100+ active lawsuits against the company. We don't discuss it here because it would have become the entire conversation, but at one point in Carpenter's interview, and it's available on vulture.com, I'll link it in the show notes, you should go read it, the head of parental advocacy at Roblox makes an unusual comparison to, quote, two young British schoolgirls who went off to fight ISIS. You're going to need to read that part on your own. Anyway, Nicole Carpenter is a reporter whose work has appeared across a variety of publications, from 404 Media to Aftermath, GameFile to GameSpot, and she previously worked with me at Polygon. Her interview with Dr. Elizabeth Milovodov is available on Vulture in the story Roblox Head of Parental Advocacy Says We're All Responsible for Kids' Online Safety. Let's hop into it. You spoke with Dr. Elizabeth Milovodov, who is the head of parental advocacy at Roblox, a relatively new role created to address the, let's say, mounting concerns from both parents and politicians that child predators will use the platform to groom, abduct, and abuse children. But before we get into that, I'd like to set the table because I think there are many older people who aren't parents and they still don't know much about Roblox. So first, just how big is Roblox?
Roblox is massive. People who don't know a ton about Roblox itself see Roblox as a game, but Roblox is actually a platform that has thousands of games on it. And so many of those games at any given time have tens of thousands of people playing it. And when you add all of that up, you get millions and millions of people playing per day.
You have long been an advocate / fan / critic of Neopets.
Yeah.
And I am talking with the CEO of Neopets later today for a future episode. And I'm realizing everyone who played Neopets was better prepared for Roblox than everybody else because the superstructure, it was there. Like that, it's an entire different side of video games that has just grown and grown and grown to be bigger than arguably all of video games.
Yeah, I actually think about that a lot. My relationship to Neopets as a child and that place for me as a child. And when I'm thinking about what Roblox is now for children. And I was a child when I was playing Neopets. I wasn't thinking about safety concerns. And looking back, I don't even really know what Neopets was doing to be safe-ish. But I don't remember hearing a ton about safety issues on the platform. The moderation was pretty good. You could talk to other people, but it was through NeoMail or on forums, which were heavily moderated. I don't remember looking to connect with people off the platform either. I mostly stayed contained within Neopets, and I think that might be because there weren't other, you could go to AOL, you could go to Instant Messenger. And so, but yes, anyways, I think a lot about Neopets and its role in my life as a child compared to Roblox and what children are, that space for children now. These sorts of spaces for children are important, but the safety is also such a major concern.
There are a few things that you said there. One about how moderation works into being on or off platform. We're going to get to all of that in just a second. First, I know it's very tough because users can register under false ages, but what percentage of the user base is estimated to be children?
Okay, so Roblox actually has some improved data as of recently, the February shareholders report, because of their new age verification tools, which is an AI face scan that determines your age based off your face. It's probably not perfect, and there probably are ways around it. Again, this data is maybe it's a little wrong, but it's probably mostly right. And they said that their user base is younger than they actually thought based off self-reported data. So 45% of daily active players have verified their age. 35% of that is under 13. 38% are between 13 and 17. And 27% of people who have done the age verification are over 18. So that's a significant amount of people who are under 18.
You mentioned with Neopets, being able to communicate via NeoMail or on moderated forums. How does Roblox allow players to communicate with one another?
Roblox lets players communicate through chat functionality that is embedded into the games.
Is there moderation?
Yes, there is moderation.
Okay.
There are filters, and Roblox says it's a mixture of human and AI moderation. And the thing now is that with this age verification, the AI tool to like verify ages, that is designed specifically to turn off the ability for people to chat, unilaterally. People who are in the under 13 bracket with the age verification can only talk to people on Roblox who are also within that like under 13 bracket. And so the hope there is an under 13 person no longer can talk to someone who's over the age of 18.
And that nobody in either direction is exploiting that system.
Yes. So like people who are age verified as over 18 aren't going to be able to use the communication tools to even contact people who are under 13. There are still ways, it's not like a perfect system. I certainly have worries about it. We've seen this before with people using, I can't remember which app this was for, but people using like cartoon characters or like photos of video game characters.
I think Death Stranding's Norman Reedus was used as like a face that could get past, I don't know if it's Discord or some system. Yeah.
Yeah. And Roblox is the way that the AI age verification works is that it's through video. And so it puts a circle on your face and you just turn your face back and forth. It's not just like judging by a photo, but if there's a will, there's a way.
How long has child predation been an issue on the platform?
I would say that likely always been an issue, but around 2020, like all other platforms and video games, like it blew up. And it blew up at such an explosive rate where, you saw what seemed to be a big increase in the amount of people who were being arrested for this, or lawsuits that were happening started to go from 2020 after that huge boom. And what a lot of Roblox's critics are saying is that Roblox expanded at such a rate that its moderation could not keep up with, the explosive growth, that like the growth was the priority and not keeping people who use Roblox safe.
I want to come back to that idea at the very end, but first you mentioned the lawsuits. You reported that Roblox is currently facing over 100 lawsuits from parents and caregivers who believe their kids have been harmed from the time with the game. There are also lawsuits from government institutions. Roblox itself, as we're saying, disputes these claims. You mentioned the AI moderation. You mentioned the age gating. What else has Roblox done to improve safety since these lawsuits started to bubble up?
The other part of that beyond the age verification is sort of like building up its tools for parents and allowing parents the ability to block certain games or to limit chat or, just to have like more control over what their children are doing on Roblox. And so that's like what that sort of like suite of tools is what this whole push has been built around. The age verification is like the big thing that a lot of it is centered around.
So the two problems for me, and I'm not speaking even really as a journalist here so much as like parent who does not allow their child to use Roblox anymore, is the question of passing the buck and then scaling. And first, passing the buck. You asked Dr. Milovodov about a specific case. I believe it was 2 girls who were abducted. And she told you, quote, look at what the articles say. The fact is they may have spoken to this person or met them on Roblox, but then they were coerced. They went off to a different platform. That's the end of the quote. What does she mean by different platform here and why there's like a different, I guess, measurement of responsibility?
Yeah, this has been Roblox's line for a long time and kind of downplaying Roblox's role in these sorts of incidents, because what happens in a lot of these cases is that children will meet someone on Roblox through the chat functionality. And a lot of these cases did happen before the age verification started limiting who you can chat with. So that said, 2 people will meet on Roblox and they will exchange information. Maybe they'll go to Discord. Maybe they'll go to Instagram. Maybe they'll go to Snapchat. And then they will continue their relationship, their, whatever that may be, on another platform. They may still use Roblox as a place to like interact. But what Roblox is saying is that like, yeah, a lot of this bad stuff's happening like somewhere else, and kind of downplaying the role that like, well, these people are meeting on Roblox. This is where they're finding people. And so Discord has also been named. Discord and Snapchat have both been named in some of these lawsuits, trying to hold them accountable for this as well.
Yeah. I personally think it's fucking insane to say like, oh, I met your kid at the school playground, but all the bad stuff happened in my car.
Right.
I know it's not 1-for-1 legally. I'm not in the interest of getting sued. But I guess the bigger question that I have for you, both as a reporter and somebody who, analyzing all of this, the bigger picture, is it feels like it is bigger than Roblox, to give them, I guess, credit. That every tech company is trying to scale quickly, and that there is no effort to match moderation at the scale. So there might be an effort to moderate, but not to match the scale. Is that, I'm asking you an impossible question. What do parents do with that?
I know, because it is bigger than Roblox, but you can't deny the role Roblox has in this, because it's where people meet. And that's such a crucial part of these incidents, these relationships. Is like, it's such a core piece of this predator problem. However, I don't know. Like, it's so confusing. It's so hard, because I am at a loss too for what parents do. Do you fully say, no, you can't be on Roblox? Do you try to use these parental tools? It's very confusing. And I'm speaking as someone who's not a parent. I can't imagine what it looks like to have to navigate this as a parent, and to see these stories, but to also see what your children want, what your child wants to get. It is a social platform. Like, a lot of people are just talking with their friends on there. They're like just, doing that sort of thing. But like, the risk is so real that I think it would be hard for me to overlook that risk there.
There was a part at the end of the interview where she actually asks you, what would you do? And I find it so interesting, because that's a recurring thing, again, that I see in tech. And you are a great interviewer, and you did your job. And I will say what my feeling is on that.
Yeah.
Is I am very tired of people asking that question when the answer is actually very easy, which is slow down.
Yeah.
It's actually unbelievably easy. But really what I think is often being asked is, what do we do without having to do the thing that works?
Yeah. Yep. Because Roblox is at this scale now. Like, more people are playing Roblox's top games than they are playing Steam's top games. You can't go back from there. And I think that's the problem, is that you can't scale down now. Like, it's already out of the box. And that is such a really real problem, that Roblox scaled at this rate and didn't have the moderation to keep up with that. And that's what makes this problem so hard, is like, you can't undo that. You can't just go back and try to slap a safety Band-Aid on it.
The only thing that brings me joy, because I want to end on a positive note, is that, we should have learned this lesson from social media. And now, like, we've gotten a second shot at it, and we didn't learn it from Roblox. But, we won't be fooled a third time and, build a whole bunch of data centers that cost, a lot of money, and then, do this again. That won't happen.
That won't happen.
Cool. Got it. And now you said it out loud, so I've got you on the record, Nicole Carpenter.
Great. It's not going to happen. It's fine.
Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you so much for reporting on things that are existentially crushing.
You're welcome. No, but thank you for having me. I am always happy to talk to you and talk to you about Roblox.
Where should people find you?
Do you hear her? She's trying to speak for me.
What did
You
she
didn't hear
say?
She said you can find my mommy, Nicole Carpenter, on Blue Sky.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
I know.
Incredible. I'll ask her to write it down for the show notes.
Yeah, if she could write it down for the show notes.
Being a dog is rough. I'll see you later.
But yeah. Yes. Oop, I just got bit. Just a little on the hand.
And that is a wrap on Fictophilia. This was a challenging topic for me to parse. I hope, listeners, that you walk away not with judgment of individuals, but as I said from the very beginning, skepticism of platforms, governments, and companies that seek to exploit how we feel for their gain. And if there's no gain to be had, then prepare for them to squash those feelings and the people who have them. Also, just hope that you learned about one of the many ways that we see and experience the world. In the unique ways each of us loves people and art. Next week, you might not know the ESA, but you would not be playing video games today without them. The ESA protected games from the US government in the 1990s and the 2000s, leading to the monumental Supreme Court decision that gave games the same protections as other art forms. Now, with growing concerns around gambling and child safety inside of video games, and tariffs and artificial intelligence outside of video games, the ESA must once again guide the medium through a period of existential peril. I talked with the ESA president, Stanley Pierre-Louis, about everything from artificial intelligence to calls for unionization. And he provides a history of the ESA from its origins in the wake of early 1990s Mortal Kombat hysteria to its heyday overseeing E3 to its current form during the Trump administration. Until then, though, a reminder, post-game supporters get the show and the newsletter early on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern at the latest, usually way earlier than that. They get extra acts and bonus materials. This week, Patreon listeners got a behind-the-scenes look at post-games, where it is, where it's going, the many people that we will be chatting with over the next 2 months. Are you surprised that they will be on the show? I certainly am. I guess this is becoming a real thing. Plus, each month, subscribers get a bonus episode in my ongoing series, Past Games, in which I share deep dive histories into the gaming anniversaries of 2026. If you're listening to this on the free feed, well, you might want to head over to the Patreon because a new episode just went live. It is the history of the original Zelda, a behind-the-scenes story that explains how The Legend of Zelda got made almost in parallel with the original Super Mario Brothers, and how the series evolved from there, not just over years, but over decades. It's a great listen. Plus, no ads on anything. Subscribe to the Patreon at patreon.com/postgames for only $5. Subscribe to the newsletter for free at post.games and get full show notes. Post Games logo by James Barham, theme by Mark Sparling, and a special thank you to this week's guest, Tanja Välisalo. Like the show, leave a review on Apple or Spotify, or share the show with a friend. All of those are a colossal help. And now, to take us out, an original song from the upcoming game, Tears of Metal. The character selection theme by Vibe Avenue. I'll see you next week.